Ferguson with the STS-126 crew, and you're watching NASA TV.
We're waiting now for footage of the astronauts putting on their launch and entry suit at T-3 hours and holding. We have 25 minutes left in this built-in hold, and we have no issues that are being worked that would delay launch. Commander Chris Ferguson is putting on his launch and entry suit. Commander Ferguson is a U.S. Navy captain who was born in Philadelphia. Pilot Eric Bowe, a U.S. Air Force colonel. This is his first space flight. He's logged over 4,000 hours in 45 different aircraft. Pilot Bowe giving a little wave. Mission Specialist Donald Pettit. He's the Mission Specialist 1. This is his second space flight. He was an Expedition 6 science officer. He spent over 161 days in space. Sandy Magnus. Sandy's a veteran of spaceflight STS-112. She's going to stay on board as the Expedition 18 flight engineer and a science officer. Mission Specialist Heidi Marie Stephanician Piper. Heidi Piper is a veteran of one space flight. She was on STS-115. She's the lead STS-126 spacewalker. She'll conduct 3 spacewalks. Mission Specialist 4, Army Lieutenant Colonel Shane Kimbrough, served in Operation Desert Storm. This is his first spacewalk, or first space flight, and he will conduct 2 spacewalks. Mission Specialist Steve Bowen. He's Mission Specialist 2, a U.S. Navy captain. This is his first space flight. Putting on his launch and entry suit, he will conduct 3 spacewalks. We'll now go to Allard Butel with NASA astronaut Dottie Metcalf Lindenberger as we follow the STS-126 crew out of the operations and checkout building where they were suited up, and they'll make their way to Endeavour.
We have the actual crew members coming down and getting ready, it looks like, to head onto the elevator to come down to the operations and checkout building in the Kennedy Space Center's industrial area. It's got to be a pretty good feeling when you're...
Oh yeah, you see all the smiles there, all the teamwork.
We see the Astrovan making its way down the NASA causeway, and will be making its turn near the vehicle assembly building before they actually drop off the, they typically drop off the pilot of the shuttle training
Right.
aircraft.
Right, so Steve Lindsay will get out and then go to the shuttle landing facility. And then the rest will proceed on to Launch Control Center.
The Astrovan now is obviously on the up of the pad surface and will be stopping on the mobile launcher platform and getting them into position so that they can take the elevator ride up to the 195-foot level. And 195 feet up on the structure is the entry point, the white room as we call it, and the where the hatch is on Endeavour and where the crew will be ingressing, or going into, as I like to usually say,
Yes.
the shuttle. You can see also pretty much dead center in your field of view. That's the access point at the 195-foot level, and above that is, see the top part near the over the external tank. The crew is now taking their elevator ride up to that 195-foot level. And one by one, they'll start making their way across that walkway and into the white room.
Okay, well, we can start to see there's Heidi, Shane, and I think it looks like we've got Eric maybe off the top of our screen.
And that is the walkway that we were talking about. Closeout crew member going across it first and getting ready. They have several members of the closeout crew already waiting for the astronauts inside the white room. And traditionally, you get the commander was the first one in, and there's Chris Ferguson. Closeout crew helps the final suiting and
Right, they're putting on their parachute right now.
now the STS-126 Endeavour crew was just here at Kennedy Space Center a couple of weeks ago and did this exact thing in the terminal countdown demonstration test, the full launch dress rehearsal. Yes, they practiced the same thing. They did the same technicians, the same routine, but it's got to be a lot different knowing that this time you really are actually going to launch.
Real.
Yeah, this time it's real.
Right, but that's why we practice it, so that you know what to expect, and if there are any things you wanted to change or do differently, then you would do it. But it's a pretty good routine here. There we can see Commander Chris Ferguson waving to probably family and friends.
Commander Ferguson is now crawling his way into the hatch and will be helped into his seat on the flight deck. What are some of the things that he's going to do? Obviously, we've called him the commander.
Right.
He's in charge.
So obviously he's in command of the mission itself, he's in charge of the systems on board the shuttle, flying the shuttle. He'll do the docking on flight day 3 with the International Space Station. And before he does the docking, he'll do the RPM, the pitch maneuver that we use now to inspect the shuttle.
That's the rendezvous pitch maneuver you were mentioning, the backflip.
Right.
We've grown accustomed to seeing, but had never done before in 2005. It allows the station crew members to take 2 digital cameras, 400 millimeter and 800 millimeter shots of the underbelly and the heat shield, and see resolution between the 2 cameras between 3 and 1 inches, and that gets put down to the ground as part of our overall inspection techniques.
There we can see Sandra Magnus, she's waving, getting the famous Snoopy cap on. So we can see as they're strapping Chris Ferguson in and then getting him onto cooling.
Sandy Magnus is on board Endeavour, and that was pilot Eric Bowe getting in the white room and getting ready to.
Yep, now we're seeing our Eric's getting his parachute on there too. There's our mid-deck.
Sandy Magnus getting, again, these are not comfortable positions. It's not an easy thing to do.
Not easy to get into. You can see they have to have that strap there to kind of help hold up and lift your back up as you get ready to get into a situation position. It's not like sitting in your car and strapping on your seatbelt.
No.
It's a little bit different.
So what are exactly some of the things that Eric Bowe will be doing during the mission, obviously, besides, as I mentioned
Right,
briefly?
so as pilot, he'll be backing up the commander on the docking with the space station and following through the rendezvous timeline, as well as he has shuttle arm operations, and then after the undock, he'll do the fly around of the station. And then as they come back in for landing, he'll fly on the heading alignment cone also. So the pilot does get to have some chance to fly.
Does get to fly, and he'll do some work with the spacewalks and some of the
Absolutely.
internal
Yep.
choreographing of it.
So you can see Heidi's coming in here now, and they'll be getting Eric ready to go on through the hatch in a few moments.
This is the maximum number of astronauts you're going to get in the white room at one time.
Hi.
See pilot Eric Bowe climbing on up into his seat.
Yeah, there's actually handles up that you can see where he's reaching for that he'll use to help pull himself up into the seat.
OTC, COFC.
Yeah, Seagull.
I give you 619 through 621 complete.
And you're giving me 622. Thank you.
NOTC, MS3 on board at this time.
Copy that, Travis. 2148.
And here we have Don Pettit.
Confirming that that Heidi Piper is actually on board Endeavour.
Okay.
And that was, as you said, Don Pettit in the white room getting himself ready to get inside the shuttle.
There's Shane Kimbrough getting into his parachute. And Shane spent a lot of time down here watching launches. His grandparents lived in the area, and so he's been coming here quite often. Maybe he's, I bet he's really excited to be going inside the shuttle this time and not just watching from the outside, but how neat to have had that experience.
And often talk about, I never thought that I would be, I watched them go up, but I never thought I'd actually be in one going up in one. I think, yeah, you're right, a much better view from
inside.
the
I think
inside
he's going to enjoy that.
Now we can see mission specialist Steve Bowen in the white room.
That's right. He'll be sitting in the MS2 position between the commander and pilot with a view of all of our meds displays, our displays on board.
now all crew members are on board, and actually it's an interesting point. Now we can see the glow sticks a lot better now. We were making that transition from what was a perfectly sunny afternoon here in Central Florida along the East Coast, and now it's getting a little darker.
Right, so I guess it's the only time that we really know that this is November. We are having that sunset earlier, and they'll have be ready for this beautiful night launch. It's really neat to see the whole flight deck now, all the crew members on board. Again, Commander Chris Ferguson, Pilot Eric Bowe, MS Specialist 1, Don Pettit, MS Specialist 2, Steve Bowen, and then on our mid-deck, we'll have Heidi Stephanician Piper, Shane Kimbrough, and Sandy Magnus. And just wishing them the best and Godspeed as they go off to the International Space Station and getting it ready for 6-person crew and getting ready to bring home Greg Shamatov.
This is shuttle launch control at T-minus 1 hour, 30 minutes and counting. While the STS-126 crew has been going into Space Shuttle Endeavour and getting strapped in and having comm checks, launch crews have been busy preparing the vehicle for launch this evening. They powered up Endeavour's solid rocket booster tracking system and synced the master events controller on the shuttle. The master events controller times out all critical steps for the launch between Kennedy Space Center's firing room and the Range Operations Center at Cape Canaveral. Checks were completed of the external fuel tank's liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen sensors. And the final inspection team, or ICE team, gave a rundown of their inspection. This is shuttle launch control.
And TLT OTC. Form horizontal situation config for your checklist. Copy.
And payload bay purge flow rate is set for launch.
Thank you.
And CBFS, I copy 1045 in Houston, flight NTD.
Go ahead, NTD.
Yes, at this time I'll give you 1046. You can perform your BFS pre-flight uplink loading.
I copy. We'll put the BFS pre-flight uplinks in work. Stand up.
And CDR TC. CDR go.
Step 1080, T-minus 20 minutes, TPC dump is complete.
No TC copies as well.
Okay, folks, here in the room looking for go, no go for launch. Let's see. GC?
Pack console and safety console
Go.
NTD.
FIDO, go. Prop, go. GNC, go. Max, go. Eagle, go. ECOM,
Go.
FAO,
Go.
ACO,
Go.
DPS,
Go.
Pinko,
Go.
PDRS,
Go.
Surgeon,
Go.
go. Booster, go. PAO, he's talking. Capcom, go.
And safety, let me know when I can have 1061.
Okay, folks, we have a go for launch from the vehicle from y'all. I'm going to talk to weather here in a few moments, and I expect to get a go from them.
STM NTD.
STM.
So be ready.
Yes, sir, I'll give you step 1063. You can deactivate.
And NTD ISO.
Countdown clock will resume on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark.
T-minus 9 minutes and counting.
TLS auto sequence has been initiated.
CISL, go ahead.
Recorder activation complete.
Copy all.
This is shuttle launch control at T-minus 8 minutes, 38 seconds and counting. The launch team verified that the inner door of the White Room was not secured, but it's not a concern for launch. The crew has been briefed, all polls have been taken, and we are go for launch at 7:55 p.m. Eastern Time here at NASA's Kennedy Space Center.
CLS is go for orbiter access arm retract.
And Endeavour OTC, have a great flight delivering Leonardo to the space station. The legacy of his discoveries rides with you as you continue the quest for knowledge. Godspeed. Endeavour copies all. Thanks, OTC.
The orbiter access arm has now been retracted away from Endeavour. It's the walkway used by the crew to enter the shuttle and can be returned to the position within seconds if necessary.
CLS is go for PERT sequence 4.
T-minus 3 minutes, 50 seconds and counting. The engines are being gimbaled into position for launch. T-minus 2 minutes, 24 seconds and counting. The gaseous oxygen vent hood is slowly being retracted away from the top of the external tank.
Endeavour OTC, close and lock your visors and initiate O2 flow. That is in work.
T-minus 2 minutes and counting.
CLS is go for ET LH2 pressurization.
Liquid hydrogen replenish on the external tank is now being terminated. T-minus 1 minute and counting.
CLS is go for auto sequence start.
T-minus 26 seconds. We have auto sequence set.
20. 15. 10.
CLS is go for main engine start.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Booster ignition and liftoff of Space Shuttle Endeavour, preparing our home in space for a larger international family.
Houston now controlling.
Houston Endeavour, roll program.
Roger, roll Endeavour.
Commander Chris Ferguson confirming Endeavour is rolling on course for a rendezvous with the International Space Station. Speed 1,000 miles an hour. Altitude 1 mile. Downrange distance 6.5 miles from Kennedy Space Center already. Three engines throttling down to 72% of the rated thrust as the shuttle goes through the realm of maximum aerodynamic pressure. Altitude 5 miles. Downrange 8 miles from Kennedy Space Center. Speed 1,500 miles an hour.
Endeavour, go at throttle up.
All systems remain go. Speed 2,000 miles an hour. Altitude 10 miles. Downrange distance 12 miles from Kennedy Space Center. It's 1.5 minutes since launch. Endeavour has consumed more than 2.25 million pounds of propellant and weighs less than half of what it did at launch. Standing by for burnout of the twin solid rocket boosters and jettison. Booster officer confirms a clean separation of the two solid rockets. Endeavour's three main engines continuing the second stage, accelerating with 37 million horsepower. Endeavour's two orbital maneuvering system engines firing now to help boost the shuttle into orbit. They'll fire for 1 minute and 36 seconds. Altitude 440 miles.
Two engine tail.
Two engine tail.
That call means Endeavour can perform a transatlantic landing at Zaragoza, Spain if required. Speed 4,000 miles an hour. Altitude 44 miles, 73 miles from Kennedy Space Center. Three minutes, 30 seconds into Endeavour's flight. Speed 4,900 miles an hour, altitude 53 miles, downrange 115 miles from Kennedy Space Center. Three good auxiliary power units, three good fuel cells, three good shuttle main engines. Altitude 66 miles, downrange 245 miles from Kennedy Space Center. Speed 7,300 miles an hour.
Endeavour, press to ATO.
Press to ATO.
Endeavour could now reach a lower than planned orbit, but a safe orbit on just two engines. Speed 8,000 miles an hour, 11,000 feet per second, altitude 67 miles, 300 miles east of Kennedy Space Center.
Endeavour, single engine ops 3.
Single engine ops 3.
Endeavour could now perform a transatlantic landing on only one engine at 109% of rated thrust if required. Everything going well. Endeavour rolling to a heads-up position now to assist its performance and communication links as it climbs to orbit.
Single engine Zaragoza, 104.
Single engine Zaragoza, 104.
Endeavour, press to MECO.
Press to MECO.
Endeavour traveling 10,000 miles an hour, and the shuttle could reach its planned orbit on just two engines if necessary. Just under 2 minutes to main engine cutoff now. Altitude 66 miles.
Endeavour, your shutdown plan is nominal. Go for the +X.
Shutdown plan nominal. Go for the +X.
Commander Chris Ferguson getting the go-ahead for the +X maneuver, in which he will manually raise Endeavour's nose into a +X position to allow handheld photography of the external tank using digital cameras on the...
Endeavour, single engine press, 104.
Single engine press, 104.
Speed now 13,000 miles an hour, downrange 590 miles, altitude 64 miles. Three good main engines, three good auxiliary power units, three good fuel cells. Speed 16,000 miles an hour, altitude 64 miles, downrange 760 miles. Booster officer confirms main engine cutoff, standing by for jettison of the external tank. Receiving live television pictures as Endeavour falls away from the external tank. Continue its climb to orbit. Speed 17,400 miles an hour. Altitude 67 miles, downrange distance 1,000 miles.
Endeavour, Houston, we saw nominal MECO. OMS 1 is not required.
Copy, nominal MECO, OMS 1 not required.
Capcom Alan Poindexter pointing out there's no reason to use the shuttle's orbital maneuvering system for the first boost to help it reach a proper orbit. Flight Director Brian Lunny polling the team.